Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Akibatun lil mustaqim. Allah fi kulli umri yasta'in. Allah fi kulli umri amjid. Inhu Rabbi yuhibbu mu'min ladhi yusalli wa ibadatuhu wa salawatuhu min mukhlisin. Muhammadan huwa Sayyidina Makbubana Inhu kana Rasulun Nabiyyan Sallu Allah Ta'ala عليهم وسلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته للإخوان وأخواتي في دين في أفريقيا وأوروبا وأمريكا وآسيا وكل مكان. سلام على من اتبع هدى للإخوان وأخواتي في كل مكان. أهلا وسهلا بكم. My dear brothers and sisters, those who show up in the future, continue our series on the Iman, the 77 traits of Imam, which is essential for every Muslim to know and to implement and to enforce in his life. And notwithstanding, I understand the modern times, the rat race, especially in the West, nobody cares about the 77 traits. But they will care about the 77 traits one day when they're in the grave and when they get questioned about these traits and about their attitude and behavior, and did they fulfill these traits, because many of the traits go into many of issues of the Sharia and fiqh, Islamiyah. And so a lot of people don't care about them because they rather say, well, I'm a Muslim, I'm a mu'min, without even possessing not even 1/4 of the traits that our Prophet ﷺ has brought forward to us, and and subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought forward for us. And, you know, my dear brothers and sisters, it's really shameful that we're in a time now where when you read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he talks about this, that there will be these difficulties and that his name will not even be mentioned in end times, even in the khutbahs in the masjid. We're coming to those end times now. And it's really, it's really shameful, but this is the quality of the Muslims that are out there today. And unfortunately, this is the way it is. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Omar. How you doing, my dear brother? And this is something that, I don't know how to express that we're living in these type of times. And it's not just only in the Western states, like in the United States, it's everywhere. And it is really trying. And as the students of knowledge try to convey the message, and our scholars who are left try to convey the message, it becomes increasingly difficult because we come in on deaf ears from our own community. And so this is difficult. And the 77 traits are like that. Many people don't want to hear about them. And yet they will tell you straight out when you come to them and ask them some of the qualities about these 77 traits. They don't have them, I should say, and they don't care if they have them or not. And this is really, again, a shameful matter. Today, we're going to cover the 40 qualities connected to the entire body. And remember last week, we covered some of the other aspects of Iman, where we talked about the tongue, and we talked about the kalima. I didn't really go deep into it because that in itself is a whole class. And this has to do with the testimony and about Tawheed. And remember, I was talking about last week, again, we have two types of Muslims. We have the Muslims who go overboard by mentioning the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala and Tawheed in everything they do, when in fact they don't practice the faith. Then we have the others who don't utter it at all, nor do they read the Quran, nor do they even make dhikr Allah. nor do they even give the shahadatain, which is a prerequisite of the kalima. It's one of the most important factors to that, and they don't care. This is very, very, very difficult, my dear brothers and sisters. And the kalima, which is the number 31 of the traits of Iman, that is very important. And as I said before, you should continuously to give these out and continuously make that dhikr and give the shahadatain, because in this day and age, we do not know when we're going to pass from this earth. And you remember something, the amount of dhikr that you make to subhanahu wa ta'ala and upon our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, it will count in your benefit. This is a good thing. So when you count, they count. The angels count these dhikr. You make dhikr Allah, they count this, and you accumulate points for this. Merits, so to speak. In English, I guess you could say, and Azure in Arabic. And so this is important, my brothers and sisters. I think about this, and I'm hoping, inshallah, the ones who do follow this program, that they do get something out of this and will investigate, look into the 77 traits and try to match them. Some of them are very easy. Others are really implicate us. You know what I mean? They really implicate us, and even me. As I expressed one here that gets me where I'm very weak in particular. There's some other ones here that I have to work on as well. But my brothers and sisters, just think, that any day you can go and you can pass on. And you want at least as many of these traits as possible, because it's essential for you as a Muslim. Okay, so let's look at the 40 qualities connected to the entire body. And the first one, number 38, as I listed in the chat room here, 38 is to make wudu, ghusl, and keep one's clothing clean. Remember, you hear me, for how many months, talk about wudu. This is important. This is the ablution before you make your prayer. How meticulous we should be in that. And I gave many examples talking about that. Well, today we have many Muslims who don't even do it, nor they don't even know how to do it right. And nor do they care to even do it. We have those type of so-called Muslims today. And the wudu is an essential part of the prayer. Without that, your prayer is invalid. Without doing it meticulously, your prayer is invalid. And you should be meticulous. Every human being has days where they go, they make wudu and the ablution, they clean, and they have things in their mind. You try your best to get this off your, out of your mind when you make wudu, because you can forget because there's a series of things we have to do by threes as far as cleansing, arms, face, and head, and then ears and so forth and so on. So we have those series, and you can easily forget. And Shaitan enters the picture to make you forget. And you'll ask the question, did I wipe my head? And these things happen because Shaitan has now got involved. So you have to you got to keep your mind clean as you possibly can, focused upon wudu, to make it as best as you can according to the Sunnah, not according to what someone tells you, but what you know and what has been taught and it's given to us by the Prophet in his hadith, plus what has been taught by our rightful scholars, and you use that. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Amina. So this is important, my brothers and sisters. The ghusl is the ceremony, a bath that is made when after relations, lawful relations, with your wife. We have a purification method to wipe off the impurities, to clean up the impurities after you and your wife, inside the house of, have relations. And you have to do this in order for you to have this cleanliness. If you don't do it, your prayers are invalid. Again, we go back to some of the things. We know some people today, can you believe this? Some Muslims today will have relations with the wife on Monday. They'll make wudu, but they don't make ghusl. and they'll go 4 or 5 days even without, like my brother says here, janaba shower to remove these impurities from your body. This is essential. Without removing that, your wudu is basically invalid and your prayer is invalid. You must do it. And there's some other conditions too. Discharges, woman, there's men discharges, and there's some rules to that. We won't get into that. That's a whole different class in itself. And each of the madhabs, they have some differences of opinion to a degree, and we won't get into that. But the main thing here is focus on is that we have to have this ceremonial type of bath after we have relations with our wife. Now, here someone may ask the question as well, Yahya, let me ask you something. What if I stepped out of the house and I went out and made, some had relations with a woman and so forth and so on. It's not my wife. You will still be required to do that, but you have to repent, of course, for that act. And as you know, as the hadith said, the Prophet said that you're not a Muslim at the time that you are engaging in this illegal act. So you have to be very careful. And so this way you have to make sure that even if you do make this error, and you make this sin, which is a grave sin in Islam, in certain circumstances, this can lead to your death under the Sharia Islamiyah. So you have to be very careful, and you have to do this, and make sure that you do it right and under right conditions and so forth. The next one is to keep one's clothing clean. This is one that's also a stickler, because today, as we talked about, I have said many times, we have the modern Muslims today who don't dress Islamically. And a lot of times you see them in very tight clothing. I'm talking about the men, and, in very shameful type clothing. And a lot of them have not had baths for many days, and their clothes are matted and not well. And then they step into the masjid. And this is something that is not right. And here is, in order to be a true believer, you have to have the wudu. You have to make the ghusl when it's at the right time, when you have relations with your wife, when there's certain discharges and so forth and so on. There's rules about this, even when there's no sexual relations. There's certain rules. I won't get into those rules today because it's a class in itself. And then keeping one's clothes clean. Now, how about the man who works in construction? He wants to go Salat to Jumu'ah, or he wants to make his prayer. Is he required to go home, change his clothes? No. He does the best he can to clean off the impurities, especially in Muslim states. We carry, tobes or the gandoras that you can put over the clothes, because you have to go back to work. So you can't go home to change clothes. And it's a encumbrance for you to have to go change clothes and then put up those clothes back on to go back. And Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is gracious. He's very gracious. So he's not going to put too much on us, but you put the clean clothes over you, or you wipe off as much as you can, because we have painters. How about the guy who's painting? He's got paint on his clothes. It's very difficult for him to go and change shoes and everything. It takes time and a lot of work. You can't, many jobs, you just can't go home. Some people live 30, 40 minutes away. How are they going to go home, change, and come back? And they're not allowed to change at work. So there's some difficulties there, but you do the best you can. And like in modern, in Muslim states, you have tobes and so forth to cover these demerits where you have your clothes are dirty because you work in construction, and you make your wudu, you clean yourself, and you put something over the clothes so it doesn't show. And so this is important, my brothers and sisters. And again, this is something that can easily be met. This is an easy requirement, very easy requirement to be declared a movement. This is something that any of us can master. It's not difficult to do. We do our best. And when you go to pray, you should try to have the best clothing that you possibly can to make your prayer. And again, we know some people they're very wealthy. They can buy expensive clothes and nice, tobes and robes and so forth and so on, and kufis for hair and so forth like this. And others just don't have that. You wear best what you can when you make your prayer. And also remember something about the clothing. When you make that prayer, make sure that you cover the aura, which is going to be covered in one of the other parts here. Because as you hear me complaining many times, a modern Muslim today, he'll come into the masjid with very tight clothes, bulge showing in the front, his rear end showing in the back, his shirt is halfway up, and he's he comes into masjid and he begins to make prostrations, and this is definitely a sinful act, and his salat is not accepted. So you stay away from that too. You go in and you got to remember, subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. You got to remember something, the angels are recording. So you make sure that you cover the areas that is supposed to be according to our sunnah, and keep that going as is. Now, you master that. You do this. Now you go to the next one, which is 39, to be steadfast in offering salat. Now we got you in a point where we clean you. We're telling you you have to make certain types of purification, right? And then you have to, how about the clothing? All this leads to the culmination of the act of the salat. And here we have number 39, be steadfast in offering salat, meaning that you try to make your prayer at the right time. You try to do things at the right time. You try to be meticulous in your prayer. You try to make the prayer according to the Quran and the Sunnah, and not in deviations. And you try to do it according to the Sunnah and the best way you were taught. This is important. Steadfast, meaning even in trying times when you know that you're upset, something's happened at the job. You come home and you're very angry. You're upset, and now you hear the adhan for prayer. Many of us, sometimes we get upset and we won't even offer prayer. You have to offer prayer. You still got to be steadfast in prayer, even if there's something, even if there's a calamity. And I give you an example, what I'm talking about, how I had to face this for the first time, really, literally the first time. In my house, we had my wife's aunt was like a mother. She basically raised her, and she died here in the house. I had to, it was a very trying time. I was there at the death of my mother. And I mean, that was, the ultimate, of sadness and remorse. And she died right in front of me there, as well. And so, but because we're Muslims, I still had to offer prayer, even though my mother's, auntie passed here, but we still had to offer prayer and whatnot. And this is what I'm talking about, steadfast. Yes, you're upset. Yes, you're sad, but you still must do what is required. And even matter of fact, this is even a good time to make your prayer, because you have a loved one who has just now passed on. This is the time now you can go in your sajda and prostration, and you can go and you can offer things for behalf of that loved person, that loved one in the janazah. And this is important, my brothers and sisters. But you must be steadfast in offering the salat and keeping this time. You're driving down the street, and you know it's time for Salat Asr, but you're on your way home. You have to make options here. You may not be able to come home for another 2 hours. What do? If you live in an area, or if you're in a position where, especially in the West, where you can get away with it without being harmed, you can pull off something. And most Muslims today, when I was a new Muslim, I would always have a prayer rug in my car. I always kept one in my car, just in case of this event, to be steadfast in prayer. And matter of fact, some situations where I lived at this time outside of Los Angeles. And I would come from LA or something. I would come from an area, and I would offer prayer. And there's some other things about offering prayer in the car, but those are issues about in fiqh, but we're not going to get into that right now. But the being steadfast and in your salat and offering that salat on time, making it according to the sunnah of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is important. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister, Bina. And so with that said, the salat is one of the most important acts that you can do. It's a pillar in Islam. You have to perform this. This is where the stickling point today is about this particular issue, the Salat. We've had the enemies of Islam. We've had the hypocrites of Islam. Both tried to hijack the Salat by making it not a pillar, by claiming that you can forget it, you can do it when you want, you can offer it only sometimes during the year, and you are still a strong Muslim. This is a fallacy. This is a fallacy. Even though the madhabs all agree that it is an act of kufr, but the penalties for it, they disagree. One of the madhabs disagree about the penalties for those who do not pray. This is how serious it is. Some are flat out, means you are a kafir, and in accordance to circumstances, you can be executed in certain circumstances about this, or flogged or jailed according to what you say, because you will be interviewed by Hezbollah. This investigation will be given to the Amir or the Sultan of the Muslim country if we lived in the Sharia. And he will then examine this investigation, and then he will bring you forward. If you still are resistant to it, he will ask you again, will you reconsider? He would may tell you to go back to jail and reconsider again. He will give you maybe 3 chances before he exact punishment on you. This is how serious it is about Salat. It's not something to play with. But because we don't live in this type of time today where we're living under the 100% Sharia, not here, but there's some places in the world they are, you being dead, you being very serious straits without praying. But since we live in the times now where the Sharia have been essentially dismantled in most of 57 states, they practice some of it, but a lot of it has been vacated. And so now people have no fear. They don't pray, they don't care. And many will even tell you they don't pray. And even some of the hypocrite groups today have even advocated you only need to pray on Fridays, or they'll say you only need to pray in Ramadan. That's how bad it's gotten today. And we have people to actually believe that. And so when people like me come across and say, no, you're supposed to do this, they'll come to fight me by saying that I'm a fanatic or a terrorist. This is how things have turned around. But then when you read the prophets, when you read the words of the Prophet, ﷺ, and you read our famous scholars from every era, they're calling them a criminal. They're calling them a mujrim. They're calling them a terrorist and fanatic. You see what I mean? So if they call you that for telling you about the prayer, you must be talking about our Prophet ﷺ as well, because of what he say in the hadiths. You see what I mean? They can't have it both ways. If they talk against you, they must be talking with the Prophet. And they must be talking about subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he said you must offer these prayers. So they don't. But they swear that they're still a strong Muslim, even though they don't offer these prayers. That's how serious it is, my brothers and sisters. Very, very serious. Now we go through the Salat, and now you've got love for the Salat and you have mastered it. You know, you hear the adhan, you run to make your Salat. You run to first make the wudu. And then if you've had relations with your wife, you go to make the ghusl, and then go to, and then you make your wudu. This is a class I wish I could give. We could talk about this, how you're supposed to perform these things. And then you go and make your prayer. And then now we're going to 40, it's pay zakat, and then the sadaqah fitr. Now, this is an issue, again, because of modern times, and especially now with the waba, the virus that's happened, and jobs, and people don't have money, and then all the chaos and through the world, this is a problem today. And we don't live in Sharia states where you pay zakat. Now here in Morocco, you pay zakat, but in other states, they say you pay, but then they really don't enforce that. But you should, even if you don't, you should pay zakat. And again, there's a formula, there's some mathematics to it, which I don't like, as you heard me say. I'm not a mathematician. When I start hearing, about some equations like an algebra or something, I'm out of it. But if you ask me to 2 and 2 or 20 times 5 or something like that, no problem. I'll handle that. But when you start about 1/3 of this to 1/2 of that and 3/4 over here, I'm out of it. But on the same token, you must pay the zakat at the right time, and you must do this. And also at the right time, as far as when it's prescribed Ramadan. And even I, still to this day, I get confused. My wife, she laughs at me and she said, "Hey, you remember we're supposed to do this now because we're getting close," and I forget. So, but I don't forget about my duty per se as far as giving. I give as much as I can, and I won't get into that, but I try to do best I can. And the best of us, we do give that sadaqah. But even though they don't cover that here in this particular one, number 40, but it is part of that, because because we have today, you can really rack up some merits with subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we have so much neediness out there, and you go to assist your brothers, even the non-Muslims, you still get credit for that because they're starving too. They're human beings. If you know they're starving and you have the means, you give what you can. There's no harm in that, even if he's a Jew or he's a Christian, or he's a Maoist or a Taoist, or he's a Shinto, or any type of thing. If he's Juju or Obia or Voodoo, and this their religions, and you know this guy is starving, you give him food. He's still a human being, because we need to perform those things today, my brothers and sisters, because we have so much needs out there. If you have it, if you can afford it, you give. And the zakat, the same thing. You have to try your best to fulfill that. If you don't understand the ins and out of it, there's a formula that is required that you do, and it adds up your wealth, and then it tells how much you need to give and so forth. That's in a class in itself, but I won't get into that class today. But you know that number 40 is you have to pay that zakat. To be a mu'min, you must do it. And of course, the more wealth you have, the more you have to give. And there's an issue about that where many people tell you don't accumulate a lot of wealth, meaning don't have a lot of money because you pay zakat on it and you lose some of it. Well, I look at it kind of differently, my brothers and sisters, about that. To be honest with you, I have kind of like a joy. Say if I've saved some money, say great deal of money, there's a formula that we use that takes from that wealth. Okay, I'm just saying, say I only got 10,000, I have saved up 10,000, and there's a formula for me to use in order for me to pay off my wealth. And sometimes I get a joy out of that because it gives me an excuse, quote unquote, to give to more than I have. You understand? So I take that and I try to give it to those in need. And this is how the philosophy you should have, my brothers and sisters, as far as talking about things like this, because it's important. To be a Muslim is one thing, but be a movement is another. It requires more dedication and the 77 traits as I've been specifying. Now we got through that, and now you've been meticulous about your prayer. You have been meticulous about your zakat, giving from your wealth, which is required from every Muslim who can afford it. And then the sadaqah of fitr at the right time, or accordingly, and the right time you give this. And that's a class, and there's a formula for that, and you give this at the right time. Now you graduated now to fasting. Fasting is very difficult for a lot of Muslims today, and there's many Muslims who don't fast. Now, truth be told, I'm not a fasting person. My wife can attest to that, and I complain a lot of time about it. But I of course, Ramadan you required. You can't get out of that. Ramadan you have to, and then I forgot the days after. But a lot of other times when it's time to fast, it's very difficult. I just have blocks for that. I don't like to do it, but I have to do it at its time, and I will do some of it. But like my wife, she can almost fast, seem like almost the whole year. For her, is nothing. But for me, it's more harder. But you must fast. You must perform the fast according to the Islamic principles, according to the Sharia and to the Sunnah. You must perform this, and fasting at the right time, giving the right circumstances. Now, there's a lot of innovations out there, my brothers and sisters, a lot. And they'll tell you to fast on this day, on the New Year's Day. You'll hear people do this. They're talking about, I'm going to fast because it's New Year's. No, that's bid'ah. That's innovation. That's not authorized for you to fast on this day. We have people also fasting on certain birthdays and stuff like this. You can't do it. That's innovation. Our Prophet didn't do this. You do as he's done. If he didn't make these type of fastings on his birthday or birthday of others or something like that, you don't do it either. But we have that today where we have people fasting and all kinds of over many innovations have been created, and they make it feel real because you will see some article written talking about that, when in fact you shouldn't even you shouldn't do it. And because today the people are lacking in education, they go follow blindly, and this is a problem. And you should try to learn when should you fast. And we have also the every Monday and Thursday we have that, and we know that King Solomon, Solomon alayhi salatu wasalam, he fasted every week, the 2 days, and so we know that he did it, and you can do that. Now this is prescribed, no problem, and you can fast at some other times as well, but you get away from the innovations. We have people that even fasting, even the Christmas holiday of the Christians. It's wrong. You don't do that. And we have some that fast a couple of days before that, honoring so-called solstice of Europe. It's a pagan rite. We have people doing that. They fast most of the day and then end up, and I talked about this one time in another program. I don't know, my brother Said, he's not here. On one of his programs, I talked about this issue, and it's wrong. And we have Muslims doing that. So you have to stay away from that. Now, number 42, to perform Hajj. This is one requirement. This is a pillar that we all must do. But unfortunately, in this day and age, many of us will not be able to do it because we can't afford to do it. Many of us work in the West, we can't get the time off to perform that. And our jobs won't give us the time off, even if you have prescribed, maybe your job, you only have 1 week. You're going to need more time than that. You're going to need almost practically to 30 days to get over there and get there. And then there's things you have to do. And it's very time consuming. And now today is very expensive, which is also a shame in that regard. Unfortunately, and the Hajj now is very expensive. And I wish it wouldn't be that way. As much money as the 57 states have, you would think they would make some things easy for the Muslims to travel there and give free accommodations and so forth and so on. Food, because we have wealth in the 57 nations, and we have wealth in Saudi Arabia, and especially the Gulf states. Their wealth is off the charts. And you would think that they could provide a service for the arriving Muslims who make Hajj and Umrah, and to provide for them so they don't have to spend out of their pocket. And they spend maybe to get there on a plane, but after that, everything should be on the house, so to speak, because we have that wealth today, but it's not, and it's very difficult. Then the other hand, we have the others who, like myself, would not be able to travel because of restrictions placed by our government, and we have many Muslims in that kind of regard too. And also this situation, the Americans in particular, American government, have a strong hold on who goes to Hajj, believe this or not. I learned this the hard way. And many, I seen one, almost brought me to tears here. It's about 5 or 6 years ago. This brother, he came to Islam. He was from Panama. And because they didn't have a Saudi embassy, he had to travel. I can't recall now where it was that he had traveled South America to go to the embassy. I can't remember what country it was. He'd been trying for 5 years. He didn't do anything wrong. He was denied every time. Every time he was denied. Then the last time he found out who denied him, the American agents who were watching him there, even though he didn't do anything wrong. But he was a strong Muslim, and he was in a country where it's not a Muslim state, and Islam is starting to grow in Panama, believe it or not. It's starting to grow there. And they systematically kept denying him. Now, what does the American government has to do? He's in his sovereign country. He's in Panama. But the Americans have some control of this Hajj. And I learned that the hard way. They do. And that is a shame in itself. How can a disbeliever have control and purse strings to control the Hajj? It's not their business, but they've made it their business, and we have allowed them to make it our business. So they handpick who they want to go. That's why you notice today, very strong Muslims all over the place can't go. Even if they applied, they're denied. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't advocate killing anybody, but because of their nature, they of following the Quran and Sunnah, they're denied that opportunity to go to Hajj. And we see this today. It's really a shame, my brothers and sisters, that the two-Bob governments are in control of that. It's a shame, it really is. And it's hurtful for people like myself, because I can't go just because they don't like me and I don't like them, and because they feel that, since I'm a strong Muslim and I go to Salat the Fajr, I'm a terrorist, because that's a criteria. They know that you're a strong Muslim and you go to the first prayer of the day, which is the hardest prayer. It's the hardest prayer to perform because it's early in the morning. You have to get up out of bed, especially in the winter months in certain parts of the world where it's very, very cold. You got to get out of bed and, get dressed and so forth and so on. And then you have to make your trek to the masjid. And some people live, 1 mile away or less than that in cold weather. And, and then they got to go there. Many people don't want to do that. They don't want to get up out of bed. That's why it's very difficult. So our government has unofficially declared this particular, if you go there, you are now an accessory to terrorism. It's a shame. Really, it's a shame, my dear brothers and sisters. So we get to now to the number 43. This one, to make itikaf. This is one I dream about, and my wife can attest. This is something that is being destroyed. Now, we have certain parts, some people in some countries can do this, where you can go, lock up in the masjid, especially the last 10 days of Ramadan. And they go in and they only worship. But most of the countries now have destroyed this. In the Western countries, you have more of this, believe it or not, than you do in the Muslim countries. Muslim countries are now starting to fight this. Some of the brothers now have got creative, where they'll go to somebody's house and, 5 or 10 brothers will stay in those last sacred days of Ramadan, and it would make itikaf. Then you can also have those, which for me, I always had this desire to do something like this in the desert. Yeah, in Sahara. For me, that's the ultimate. And you out there, out there in the dunes. You out there in the pathways of our ancestors who've been traveling this desert, going from southern Morocco to southern Egypt and to Ethiopia. They've been going back and forth for how many thousands and thousands of years, right? And so, for me, I want to be there doing something like that, but it's not easy. And this is a requirement that you must perform this. In modern times, because of all of the turmoil, you must make this inside the house. Now, when you're in this particular number 41, when you particular ibadah, when this type of worship, when you do this, at this time, you cannot have no relations with your wife. And if you're inside the masjid, you can leave only for certain circumstances, but you must be fully concentrated on ibadah, on worship in those days. You can leave only if there's an emergency or there's certain things you have to do. And if there's a janazah that someone died, you can leave for that, and so forth and so on. But inside the house is more difficult, but you try to do your best, where you and your wife, you kind of say separated for a while, and you try to do your best to do this. But it's not easy. It's not. Yes, my brother here, Omar, is talking about Monday and Thursday, for Salat and so forth. For fasting. So the itikaf is a requirement for you to be a movement. You must do this. This is number 43. You must do this, my brothers and sisters. It's not easy in today's climate, but it's an upside down situation. In many parts in Europe, I know we have brothers who make this, and they're allowed to do it. But we have brothers in Muslim states who are not allowed to do this. Not even in their homes, they cannot do it. That's how bad it's gotten. And this is all over the place in the Muslim states today. They have literally stopped this. And they get nervous when they see the brothers go make iktikaf, and I don't understand why. And they'll tell you, well, this is the formulation of a terrorist act. Oh, really? Let's look at this. I'm deviating just a little bit. Now, we know that when these people make these quote unquote terrorist acts, bombings, killings, ruthlessness, they're not doing it inside the masjid. They don't go to the masjid to formulate that. They're going in secretly in hotels, or in cars, or they go out in the open somewhere, or they go in some place in some secluded area, and they find a place to do this. But the Tubab governments have made it, though, to make it sound like the masjid, when it's open, it's a place for the terrorists. They go there to plot and to scheme, to bomb, to kill. And I find it funny. All of us go to the masjid. Where do you have time to do that? You have all these people coming in, brothers coming from everywhere. They hear the adhan, you got people coming in. How are you going to go talk to somebody when you have a bunch of people? There's, all kind of walks of life, doctors, attorneys, poor, rich, black, white, whomever, all of us coming in the masjid to pray. How are you going to be sitting there talking about a terrorist act? But the Tubab government say this is the criteria that because the masjids is the pretext to terrorism. It's shameful. It is shameful. And, I don't like that. But this is a sign, because they do have governance today over many states. And it's a shame. But I look at it from a different standpoint in saying that the terrorists that we know, the people, and now we see examples that's happening up here in Asia now. We have one group now, the new formerly group that is formed, what's happening there in Asia. And now they're killing their own brothers now. Okay, you see what I mean? Now, when you look at that, they killed the brothers even coming out of the masjid and so forth. Again, the terrorists don't use this thing, the etikaf, or they don't go and use the masjids for this act, to go inside there to plot to kill. They don't do it. So anyway, I was kind of off the subject, but I want to show you how this particular ibadah is being destroyed by the enemies who have destroyed this by telling the governments, no, don't let the brothers make this seclusion, and they go there and make this ibadah. They're there to plot and to overthrow the government. They're there to plot to go to attack the disbelievers in Los Angeles. It's not true, my brothers and sisters. It's not true. They're not doing that. The ones who do that stuff are not doing this at the calf. They're not going inside the masjids. They're doing other things. They stay out of the masjids because they know people are watching the masjids, right? They stay out of there. And so anyway, they don't have time to go in there, because now the masjids, you go in there, you got to come out. You can't stay in there 30, 40 hours. They know that. But again, they switch things around. But I just wanted to just touch on that a little bit to talk about how difficult it is to perform 43. It's very difficult to perform this. And it's a shame. I want to go out in the Sahara, but I can't. If I go out there, I'd probably be subject to two things. One, they'll swear that I'm meeting a Mujahideen group that's in the Sahara. We know who's out there now, the Sahara. We know who's out there. If I go out there, they say, oh, yeah, he went out there to meet with them. Or they may try to assassinate me there in the desert, because this is the two things. Yes, I live in this type of environment, my brothers and sisters. Oh, yes, I live in that. There's two things. Either they say I'm out there trying to meet the Mujahideen, or they will try to come to assassinate me. This is a reality. Okay, number 44. Remember, we've been talking about this many times, my brothers and sisters. Number 44 here, to move away or to migrate from the place which is harmful for one's religion. How many times have we been talking about this? Hijra, making from LA, coming to Maghreb, Morocco, or going to Sudan, or to a Muslim country because you cannot practice your faith. This is part of to be a mu'min, is to do this number 44, to move away, to migrate from that place which is harmful for one's religion. We know I had to get out of the United States. I couldn't stand it no more. I couldn't practice my faith. I was tired of looking at the racist Tubab. I had my battles, 50 years dealing with them. I had enough. And I had enough of all the gang violence. Our brothers, our genocidal brothers who want to kill black people just because of colors and so forth and so on. I was tired of that. I was tired of the rat race and whatnot. I couldn't practice my faith because the masters are so far apart, the traffic, all that. It was not conducive for me. And plus, I said, okay, I had enough. And so when I married with my wife and so forth and so on, she was already in Morocco. And so I said, hey, I had enough. There's no way I'm going to try to bring her to United States, not in this filth. So I made my migration to Maghreb because I could not practice my faith in California. So this is something, my brothers and sisters, that each one of us may have to face. If you have the means, and of course we have rulings. I've been over this. I can't go into this today. I said I had a class on this, and there's a lot of on YouTube talking about this issue. Are you required to do it? What if you don't have the money to do it? What if you don't have the means to do it? Do you still have to do it? There's a lot of rules to this. I won't get into that because I've already covered this, and maybe perhaps we talk about this again. But there's a lot of this types of questions about this. Can I go from California to live in say Birmingham, England, because I can't practice my faith? Or am I required to go to a Muslim country? Those are the things that you must, you have to weigh. And there's rules about this, and you have to be very careful. But in a nutshell, 44 is to move away or migrate from that place which is harmful. And I gave you an ayat in the Quran where Subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking you, the angels asking you about this, that you lived and you claimed that you lived in turmoil and you lived in persecution. The angels ask you, couldn't you move? Isn't the earth big enough for you to move away from that? This is dangerous. This is why this number 44 can get you in a lot of trouble. And you have to answer this truthfully. If you have the means to do it and you've been persecuted, you can't practice your faith. You're required to do it. Again, we have rules, and I can't get into that today. But you understand that what I mean by that. It's a complex issue, my brothers and sisters, that you can read on it, and there's a lot of fatwas talking about this, and there's a lot of conversations on YouTube talking about this issue as well. And I'll cover one more here, and that's 45, to fulfill the vows that have been made to Allah. This is important as well, my brothers and sisters. Each one of us may have something in private that we struggle with. It could be drinking. It could be fornication. It could be stealing. It could be something that you have a hard time with. And you make an oath, and you try to make this oath with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you have to fulfill it. And there's other oaths that you have to fulfill as well, that you should try to do in order for you to get the favor from Subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not an easy one. This is a complex one as well, because we're human beings. And I give example, like I've always said, you make the oath about you're going to stop drinking. And you may do it for a while, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and then suddenly you have this one weakness one day, and you go and crack up a beer and you drink or some wine. You see what I mean? What happens there? You repent and you go on. But if you start to make this a habit where every other day you go back to this sin, then you may have a problem. If you made an oath with Subhanahu wa ta'ala that you would stop fornicating, and you've been doing it in private, nobody knows except you and the lady that you're with. Nobody's seen you guys. Nobody knows about it except you, the young lady, and Subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must keep that secret. That's the rules. So and you make an oath and you say, look, I'm going to break away from this. And you try to do it and you don't do it. And you continue to do this situation. This is a problem here that it's going to be tough on you on Yom Kippur. And accordingly, some of our scholars have said, if you're making this continuously, this is now you have become mushrikun, meaning you have made partners because you start to worship that thing. You start to worship that beer. You begin to worship that wine. You begin to worship the fornication and so forth and so on. And you begin to worship it because why? It takes over your mind and you begin to think about it. Instead of thinking of Subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get to thinking about that wine bottle or whatever. And this is a problem that you have to solve. So my brothers and sisters, in a nutshell, we covered some more. There's 77, so we're on number 46 now. And these are self-explanatory. They're not difficult to fulfill. And inshallah ta'ala, as we go through this, each one of us would vow to try to do these as best we can. Some of us are very apt at doing this, and others are not. Some of us are really on our way. We got maybe 70 of the 77 traits. Some of us got maybe 60 of the 70. Some are only 3 or 4 of the 77. Some of us at 30. But we all should strive to acquire the 77, maintain them, keep them going and force them and so forth. We're human beings. We're going to fall and falter. That's life. So we must do the best way we can, our brothers and sisters. And I'm looking over here in the chat here. See here, our brother Omar is talking about, can a person fast committing certain sins? Well, it all depends, my brother, on this. Salam alaikum, my brother. About how you doing, my brother? Yeah, but that's a very technical. It all depends on what type of sins you're talking about. You can, we'll be getting to that pretty soon about this type of thing. We're close to it. We're about 3 or 4 of these traits here from something to this, and I will answer that kind of at this time because we're close to that. Because we have one target here that talks about unfulfilled oaths and what happens when we do certain things and what we must do to correct that. But I don't want to try to answer that now because it's also technical, and we have to understand what type will we talking about committing certain sins. What sins are we talking? Major sins? Which ones? If we're doing major sins, when are we doing it? Are we doing it in Ramadan? See, we have to ask that. Are we doing it on Monday and Thursday? Because you can fast every Monday and Thursday if you want, and something happened, you're getting ready to fast. Now, let me give you one thing. I will say this. This is how this is. And say you have these type of fasts where it's not voluntary. Okay, you doing it on your own. And I give you an example of this, how wonderful our religion is. And say if and fasting, and say you inside the house and your wife, she decides she wants to fast on this Monday. And say something happens where her husband comes to her and he says he really wants to be with her, say after lunch. Okay, I'm saying, for instance, this is husband and wife. There's nothing wrong with that. This is what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala talks about this inside the Quran, because it's best that our desires are satisfied inside the house with our wives, not outside our marriages, which we have plenty of that, and you see the trouble that happens. So anyway, you go to your wife, say, sweetheart, I really want to have relations with you, and so forth and so on. Now can she break her fast? Yes, she can, if she wants, and she gets credit for that, for satisfying you. See, this is a technical issue. Now somebody said, wait a minute, you just said, Sheikh Yahya, you just said that you're fasting, but in this circumstance, it's not mandatory that you fast every Monday and Thursday. You can. If something happens, or if your husband, he wants you to break the fast for a valid reason. One of those reasons is that he wants to have time with you, and say it's after the afternoon prayer and meal. He may want that, and he can't wait, so he can ask his wife. I'm not saying that you should do this all the time. No, but this situation can happen. Your wife is required to break it, and she gets credit for it. She gets credit for this. This is how beautiful our religion. That's why I say this is a technical issue when you're talking about fasting, and then you're talking about sins, because someone said, well, wait a minute, she was fasting and she broke her fast before she's supposed to, before the allotted time to go to satisfy her husband's desires. She's not doing that in Ramadan. She's doing it outside of Ramadan, and she's doing it in times where it's not required for you to fast on that Monday. You can do it if you want to. You get a lot of ajr for it, merits for it. You don't get a demerit if you satisfy your husband before you break your fast. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do it. Not every time, you know what I mean? But there are certain circumstances that happen and so forth that cause that he may want that. Maybe your husband's been gone for a long time. Suddenly he comes back and he has a desire, especially young men. I was young. You know how it is. Your desires, your sexual desires are strong, especially when you're young, which is natural. It's supposed to be this way. So you can to populate and to populate the earth with Muslims. The strong should marry the strong. The man like me should not marry a woman 20 years old. I'm too old now. She should have a man around her age, so that way they can have children and so forth and raise them and whatnot. So I wanted to cover that, my brothers and sisters, that part of it, because when our brother here Omar talked about this, I got to think about, can a person fast committing certain sins? Yes, you can. But again, we have to get into a issue, and I will cover some of this inshallah in a couple of days, inshallah. What else do we have here? Okay, nobody else have anything. So, okay, my brothers and sisters, I covered some of these traits today, and I'm hoping that you'll follow up on these traits of Iman and try to learn them and try to master them and try to enforce them the best way you can, and especially the Salat. The 38, the trait 38 and 39 is killing us, my brothers and sisters, in the Muslim. It's killing us. It really is. The wudu, we don't have people making wudu anymore. We have people, Muslims, not even, they say the Muslims, they don't even make wudu anymore. They don't even make ghusl. They have relations with their wife. They don't even do it. They get around to do it 3-4 days later, they do it. And even some don't even do it at all, period. All through the year, they don't even do it. And some of them, and their clothes, some of the clothes are not clean. But even though the clothes are not clean, there's other aspects of this one, keeping one's clothes clean. But also the embarrassment of especially the man, because majority of our women don't go inside the masjid, you know what I mean, with revealing clothes. They just don't, because the sisters will run them out. The sisters get on them. But because of the modern times, the young men and some the modern Muslims today will come in with clothes that are very suggestive, as though they've been on the beach. It has no business being inside the masjid, and they come in to the masjid with these clothes on. And even though their clothes is clean, their shirts are way up there, their pants are way down. You understand what I mean? The bulge is showing in the front, and their rear end is showing in the back. And so, even though his clothes is clean, that is not right either. That's against the sunnah, and his prayer is not accepted because his aura is not being protected. And you see them when they come in, they pull in their shirt. It's funny. You see them, they're pulling up their pants as though they got ants, like ants is around there. They keep pulling up their pants. You see them moving up the shirts instead of them wearing clothing proper. Now, how do you remedy that? Like in UAE, do you know that the masjids, there's a brother at the door, he will give you a tobe to put on. Now you're covered, my brother. Yes, you're covered now. Even if you got those tight fitting clothes and your body is showing, your aura and everything, and you got these, then you wear this tobe over it. Now you're good to go. Now you make your prayer. You're okay. But if you don't put that on, brother, your prayer is most likely won't be accepted. So this is something, again, my brothers and sisters, that I'm a stickler on, because I see the Salat is going away. We have Muslims who do not pray at all. We have Muslims don't even make wudu. We have Muslims don't even make ghusl, as I talked about. It's a shame. So we have to be very, very careful today in, and especially number 38 and 39. We must be very careful in that and to adhere to that. And also making our zakat, and 41 fasting, performing hajj if we can, 43 making itikaf if we can do that, and migrating. This is a big issue today, very difficult issue. It's a heated issue. Should I leave Los Angeles to go to Maghreb, to Morocco, to live and to practice my faith? I don't have a job. What should I do? There's a lot of issues here. I've covered a lot of those issues, and a lot of the scholars and students of knowledge have covered this issue as well. There's a lot of opinions about it. There's a lot of fatwas on it. So we won't get into that deeply, but that's something that you should investigate, especially if you're contemplating that, because we have many Africans born in America today who are going to Gambia. It's a Muslim country. You're covered. If you're Muslim, you're on your way. If you go there to migrate to practice your faith, you can practice your faith in Gambia. I'm telling you can. And we know Saeed and some others over there. So my brothers and sisters, thank you, my brother Omar, for coming today, my sister Amina, and my brother Obodi. Thanks for showing up, and those that show up in the future, and may Subhanahu wa Ta'ala bless you and keep you safe, especially in the States, and hoping that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala bless you with that you acquire the 77 traits, so you can be declared as a movement and whatnot. So my brothers and sisters, thank you today for showing up and listening to your brother speak, and I'll leave you. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Saeed. I will say one thing, then I will close here. My brothers and sisters, there's a lot of stuff going on today, as usual inside the United States. My brothers and sisters, please be careful there. Be mindful what you say as Muslims. Be mindful. They're arresting people as we speak. Be mindful what you say and who you say it to, because the draconian rules. You can just utter something and you can go to jail for it. When the white racists, the Klansmen and the Nazi parties and all these other skinheads and all that, they can utter all kind of stuff on the phone and out in the public. Nobody takes care of that. But you as a Muslim, you make one mistake from the tongue, saying something about a support for a group, you can go to jail for that. Be careful. Be careful, my brothers and sisters, what you say and who you say it to. When somebody come ask you a question about Palestine, or they ask you a question about Afghanistan, you be very careful. Or they ask you about Mujahideen, you be very careful who's asking you. When they ask you that, you look to see who's asking you this question. And you ask, why? Why is he coming in the masjid asking you about Palestine? You understand what I mean? Be very careful. Muslims are being busted because of this. Be careful, my brothers and sisters in the United States. The government is angry because they lost, over in Afghanistan. They lost. So now they're going to go after the soft targets. So they're going to target you in speech. So you'll have somebody come up to you and hey, man, what about the Mujahideen group in the Sahel? And you start talking. Suddenly somebody come to your door, they take you. Be very mindful of that, my brother and sister. Be very careful of that. So, my brother and sister, thank you very much for showing up. And again, my brother Omar and Abina, thank you, my dear sister, for coming, for showing up. And my brother Saeed, thank you, brother. And Abode, thank you very much. And thank you, Amina, my dear sister, who always supports me all the time. And I appreciate that. And all those who do watch this, it's kind of growing a little bit. I'm hoping to see more people, even if you don't show up here, do get it and watch it and so forth. And get something out of it and do your research. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I'll leave you with the beautiful words of Jinnah. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh.